Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Pan Future Podcast. I am your host, Sean, and today is Saturday, February 3rd, 2018. Hoping you're having a good start to this new year so far. Just recently, I rewatched an old episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, the episode entitled Darmok. If that doesn't ring a bell off the top of your head, you may be familiar with the phrases Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra, Shaka when the walls fell, or Temba, his arms wide. Yes, this is the episode in which Picard is taken down to a planet to try to come to some understanding with the leader, the captain of another vessel from another species that communicates via metaphor and reference to historical events from their own planet's past. It would be something like, as was given in the show, the example if somebody said Juliet on the balcony, referring to Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare. That would have a certain meaning in that context if you knew Romeo and Juliet. With no context or historical knowledge, this communication system is incredibly difficult to understand, and that's kind of what the episode is all about. And it's a fascinating episode. It's a great one of the best of the Next Generation series. But it always kind of struck me as I wonder how does a species get to the point where they're spacefaring, traveling to other star systems with such a complicated way to communicate. And over the years, every so often I'll catch some reruns or something and I'll see this episode again and thought the same thing. For some reason, a while back, it crossed my mind that we are maybe headed down that road in our own communication. So I went back and watched the episode. And we're not doing it verbally, but how often in a given week do you communicate with other people or have them send you communications using only photographs or memes with just a few words on it to convey some complex idea about how your day is going or how you feel? Or somebody will write the one that really drives me nuts, TFW, that feeling when, and then there's just a picture of something. Or the really annoying ones, they annoy me. I guess that's just a sign I'm old. All these things annoy me. Me, ... I say something, and then her, ... she says something, and this is expressing some sort of complicated feeling or situation using, dare I say, somewhat universal imagery and context. At least if you are understanding, there's some meme with the triumphant baby and you kind of know what that means and it can be reused in a number of contexts. And for some reason it just crossed my mind that we're sort of heading down this Darmok road where we're not directly communicating with concrete ideas or with original ideas of our own. I wonder if are we becoming a post-literate society? Will we someday only be able to communicate in pictures? I wonder if this episode of Star Trek had been made today, the aliens would, instead of speaking in metaphor, would hold up pictures of things or display pictures on a screen of things that they were trying to communicate, totally non-verbally. I suppose language as we know it will never totally go away. And the use of imagery has a long history. This is not new at all to communicate with images, but I think the frequency with which we do it and the things that we do it for, like I ate a great pizza and here's a picture of expressing my feeling of how great it was. It just seems kind of weird if you step back and look at it from a distance, and I guess that's the way things are now. I suppose, like I said, language will probably always continue. We will still always be able to communicate complex ideas. But it doesn't make me think, how does a species that communicates in metaphor learn to build spaceships? Or did they do that beforehand, like we've sort of done now? Maybe by the time we're sailing the stars to Saturn and beyond, the technology will be taking care of itself. We'll have AIs and robots that do all the heavy lifting, and we will, in a communication sense, regress to simple pictographs, because we don't need to convey complex ideas anymore, because the machines take care of all that for us. I hope we do have those wonderful machines, but I also hope we never lose the capability of communicating at length and in depth about things, such as we do now, such as hopefully maybe I do with this little podcast. Now on with the rest of the show. In the main segment this week, another little essay of mine, something I had been thinking about for a while, wanted to put down in words. I did send this out as a newsletter for the brief time I had a Patreon thing going on. But this one is called, I Wonder Why I Didn't Become a Scientist. I loved science when I was a kid. I loved animals, especially sea animals. Later, I learned I get seasick easily, and many scientists spend all day at laboratories, not in the ocean. That kind of ended my dream of being Jacques Cousteau. Honestly now, though, I think I would like sitting in a lab staring into a microscope all day. I think that'd be great. Is there some way I could have been exposed to the normal lab work environment, maybe seen what it was like, seen what people actually do? And even if I were at sea, maybe I would have gotten used to it, or just taken Dramamine. When I was young, when I was in grade school, I had the opportunity to work with a student at the local university who mentored me in biology. I did a presentation on marine biology, went to the college class as a 12-year-old, was sitting in a college class, and somehow that didn't stick. I don't know why. I loved it, but I didn't continue to do it. Somehow that seasickness and, I don't know, continuing on. Halley's Comet also featured a very prominent role in my childhood. It came around in the mid-1980s. Around that time, I also remember a very vivid aurora borealis display that reached down into southeast Wisconsin, where I lived. Combined with my fascination with space books, spaceships, and science fiction books, Heinlein's Have Spacesuit Will Travel, and a few of those choose-your-own-adventure books stand out in my memory from my childhood, I should have gone into astronomy. I think I wanted to be an astronaut in that vague way that astronaut is a big picture job that a 7-year-old could think of, like firefighter or doctor. Somewhere along the way, I remember learning that most astronauts were in the Air Force, and I had no interest in joining the military. I don't think that's true now, that you have to be in the Air Force or that you have a better shot in the Air Force, and I don't even know if it ever was true beyond the 1970s, beyond the Apollo program. And of course, the Shuttle Challenger disaster also left a lasting impression on me, but I don't think it was discouraging. It was sad and tragic, but it left me with hope that we'd not abandon space, and with a feeling that we would still try to continue our work there and to get better at it. I remember quite clearly sitting in my 4th grade classroom watching television coverage of that launch and its subsequent disaster, And I don't remember the specifics of what was said after the disaster, but I must think back and with gratitude on the teachers that I had to try to put that into some kind of perspective for us kids. And yet somehow I did not follow that into a career. My friend Mike Paul Hughes, that I interviewed a while back, did do so. The Challenger disaster was exactly what set him on his path to his aerospace engineering job. He is a little older than I am, but also comes from a similar working class background. So how did Mike get motivated and I didn't? Do I blame my parents and teachers? I'm not sure how one has a serious career conversation with a 10-year-old. Did these events that I remember so well just not happen at the right time? Later in my teen years, music had taken over, and that's what I wanted to do. But why did I try to make a career of it? Well, mostly because someone told me I couldn't, or at least that the idea might be ill-advised. Have I proven them wrong? Well, sort of. But what a terrible way to choose a career. I think I always had my doubts, too. My high school class ring was adorned not with music symbols, but with Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man on one side and a painter's palette on the other. At the time, to me, the palette represented all arts, including music. And I could have chosen visual arts as a career. I probably would have been a better choice. But if anyone had advised me, would I have listened? And even back then, I put science. That Vitruvian Man was on a permanent symbol of my early education. Yet I did not pursue it as a job. Does all this mean anything? I don't know. Some recent research has shown that the biggest factor in where we end up is how things are when we were born. I was born working/lower middle class, and there I stayed, despite my efforts otherwise. And as I pursued my future career, the world changed under me, and music ceased to even exist as it did when I was born. Now I feel like it's too late. I do not have any opportunity to truly change my career path. Make minor shifts, do some new things, sure. Go back to college to get a master's degree or PhD. Not in the cards for me. So what do we as a society do, if not for me, for future generations who have had bad timing and chase a job that's about to be upended by technology, or who change their minds later? Some people go back to school or get new training, but everyone who wants that should be able to get it. Everyone. How do we make that happen? And one bit of advice, if there is any to give, if you're a young person listening to this, or if you have children, you hear it said, follow your passions, do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. And for the most part, those are true. But I think what we often miss is that what we're passionate about might be the thing that we were passionate about when we were 8 or 10 or 12. But by the time we get into high school and get into our teen years, so much is changing in our brains and in our bodies, we kind of forget that child. And maybe what we do pick is fine. Not everyone is passionate about something when they're 10 that can turn into a great career. But if you are young and you do have children, when it comes time to think about college or post-high school or extra stuff in high school. Think about what you're really, really passionate about, what you were passionate about when you were a kid. When you were a little kid playing with toys, what toys did you want? And I wonder if it's different for kids now. I can't say that I am in contact with a whole lot of young people these days. I don't know, everything's on computers, so maybe everybody's just doing something and they're fine and they haven't had the experience I do. I do feel sometimes like the Gen X crowd that I am a part of is kind of came of age at a inconvenient time. You know, all the things that the internet and computers have done to the world now were just taking root when I was in college, and well, I, for one, among probably many, did not see it coming. So I muddle along. I continue to consider myself a professional musician with other interests, including science, and that's why I do this podcast. But yeah, there's definitely a part of me that wishes I would have gone into science. Well, thanks for listening. That's not meant to be a feel sorry for me thing. Just wanted to share my experience, and I'm not just considering these things as a science supporter and a podcaster about futurism and stuff like that, but also as someone who turned 40 a couple of years ago, you know, getting that midlife itch that we tend to get. Contemplating how I got where I am now, and how do I accept all the good things that I do have, and stay in the moment and all that good stuff. Thanks for listening. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully it's given you some food for thought. If you know a young person, help them if you can. I know sometimes young people don't listen. I know I didn't. Or maybe you do have the time. You can find the means to take a whole new career on and really love what you do. Go for it. Why not? And as always, you can come to the website, panfuture.org. Let me know what you've been through, what your experiences are like. Have you made a big change later in your life? I'd love to hear about it. You can also look me up on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all those other places. And as always, I will talk to you again in the future.
We have no idea what's out there for us where we're going. Maybe other life, maybe nothing. Maybe we spend the rest of humanity's time in the universe on the generation ships, searching. But just maybe, we'll find a home where we can again feel the breeze, touch the ground,